The heat was a physical blow, a monster with fiery breath that drove everyone back. Flames, angry and orange, devoured the old apartment building, spitting black smoke into the sky. Firefighter David Chen and his team were pulling out, the structure groaning under the assault, threatening to collapse at any moment. They had cleared all the floors. It was over. But as he did a final sweep of the perimeter, he heard it. A faint, desperate barking from a ground floor window that was thick with smoke. Protocol said to stay out. The building was a death trap, but the sound tore at him. Without a second thought, David smashed the window and climbed inside, his flashlight beam cutting a weak path through the acrid gloom. In the corner of what looked like a living room, he found him, a golden retriever, coughing and whimpering, his fur singed. "Come on, boy, let's go," David shouted, his voice muffled by his mask. He reached for the dog, but the retriever backed away, barking insistently. He wouldn't come. He ran a few feet toward the back of the apartment, looked back at David, and barked again, a clear, desperate command. "I don't have time for this," David yelled, frustration mixing with fear as a loud crack echoed from the ceiling above. He lunged and grabbed the dog's collar, but the retriever dug his paws into the floor, refusing to budge. He was surprisingly strong, a dead weight of pure resistance. Then the dog did something that froze David in his tracks. He stopped pulling and instead gently took David's gloved hand in his mouth, not biting, but holding, and began to pull him gently but firmly toward the back of the apartment. It was an act of such clear, intelligent desperation that it defied all explanation. A piece of the ceiling crashed down near the window, showering the area with sparks. The way out was becoming impossible. David's training screamed at him to get out, to save himself. But the dog's pleading eyes and the gentle, insistent pressure on his hand told him a different story. He made a split-second decision. He would trust the dog. "Okay, boy, show me," he said, his heart pounding. The dog, as if understanding, immediately let go and led the way, deeper into the inferno. He led David through the smoke-filled hallway to a closed bedroom door. He stopped at the door, scratching at it frantically and barking, his entire body trembling with urgency. David didn't understand. The building was supposed to be empty, but there was no time for questions. He kicked the door open. The room was filled with thick black smoke, but it was cooler here, further from the main blaze. His flashlight beam swept across the room and landed on a baby's crib, and inside the crib, almost hidden by a blanket, was a tiny baby, wailing silently, its face red from the smoke. A jolt of pure adrenaline and shock shot through David. The parents, in their panic, must have thought someone else had grabbed the baby. They had gotten out, but their child was still here. He scooped the infant into his arms, wrapping her in his fire-resistant coat. He turned to the dog, his eyes wide with disbelief and gratitude. You amazing dog," he whispered. The retriever barked once, a sharp, satisfied sound. Now he was ready to go. With the baby secure in his arms, David followed the dog, who now seemed to know the safest path, weaving through the debris as if he had a map in his head. They scrambled back to the broken window just as the main roof began to collapse behind them, a deafening roar that shook the very ground. David passed the baby to his waiting teammates and then helped the dog out before tumbling to safety himself. Outside, the baby's mother saw David emerge with her child and let out a heart-wrenching sob of relief and guilt, rushing to embrace them. She explained through tears that in the chaos, she and her husband had both thought the other had the baby. It was a horrifying, tragic mistake. Then she saw the golden retriever sitting calmly beside David, panting but otherwise fine. "Max," she cried. "He wouldn't leave. We tried to get him, but he wouldn't leave." It all clicked into place. Max hadn't been trapped. He could have easily escaped with the parents. He stayed behind. He stayed for the baby. He had refused to save himself until he knew the most helpless member of his family was also safe. He had risked his own life, waiting in the fire and smoke, for someone who could understand, for someone who could help. David knelt and wrapped his arms around the heroic dog's neck, burying his face in his smoky fur. He had gone in to save a dog, but in the end, it was the dog who had orchestrated the most important rescue of all. Sometimes, true courage isn't about running into the fire. It's about having the heart to stay behind, to guard the innocent, and to trust that help will come.